Okay, so today we're going to be talking about trademarking one of the most common things that businesses look to do, which is trademarking the name of a business. So this video guide will just do a quick explainer through kind of how trademarks work, why people trademark the name of their businesses, and the steps that you need to take to do that. Right, so the first thing to cover obviously is what is a trademark. We talk about this quite a lot on our other videos, but just so we're kind of starting from ground zero here. Essentially, a trademark is a registered right that protects a brand. It provides a monopoly over the use of that brand, which basically means that once it's registered, other people aren't allowed to use a similar brand or indeed an identical brand as the one that is registered. It's a fairly kind of quick and easy right to achieve, and a very kind of important one, and it lasts for 10 years, but ultimately it can last indefinitely so long as the company who owns it kind of continues to renew it. So it's one of the most kind of fundamental intellectual property rights. So why trademark the name of a business? Essentially, the business name always tends to be the core brand. It's the brand upon which all of the other brands that a business kind of owns are typically related to. You could imagine it's kind of like the centrifuge of the solar system within the galaxy of brands. So again, the example I like to use is McDonald's. So the name McDonald's is the most important brand to the company McDonald's, but they also have things like the logo, which is the kind of M, the very famous kind of golden arches, but also things like Big Mac, chicken, McNuggets, and so on and so forth. The business name tends to have that kind of higher level of importance because, of course, all of the other brands are related to that brand, and that's kind of like the home of all of that recognition and kind of reputation. Okay, so that's all well and good, but what protection does a trademark offer a business name in the kind of nitty-gritty? Well, the first things first, when it comes to trademark, as we understand it, once a trademark's registered, for all intents and purposes, and the legal detail is kind of down to the law and a legal professional, but ultimately it stops people coming into the marketplace with an identical or similar mark. So this is all kind of around the idea of confusion, where, for example, if a mark is similar enough to kind of make people think, well, that sounds very much like it's coming from, I don't know, Hugo Boss, for example, then that level of confusion may give rise to a trademark infringement claim. And what's specifically important about that, because brands can also be protected by non-registered rights, is that the ownership of a trademark allows you to have a very strong and robust reply to these kinds of instances where people are kind of coming in and around the brand. Whereas unregistered rights, such as those enforced through passing off, much more difficult to kind of essentially bring a claim, takes a lot more effort, takes a lot more money, takes a lot more kind of time and research to really prove that reputation, whereas the ownership of a trademark essentially gives you that monopoly right straight out of the box. Finally as well, the protection of a trademark is kind of jurisdictional, and it's also related to the classifications that it's registered in. However, you can essentially build the protection of a trademark and kind of expand it outwards through subsequent registrations and kind of additions to your classification. So again, really important to speak to your kind of trademark professional to make sure that you've got the right kinds of protection. So now you're interested in protecting your business name with a trademark, that's fantastic. So the first thing you're going to want to do is just make sure that it's available. So how do you check if a business name is already trademarked? Well, first thing you might want to look at is to see whether anybody out there who's using it has a kind of registered trademark symbol next to it. Now that is the R in a circle, which is specifically and only legally able to be used if you have a registered trademark for that term. So the very basic search of that particular business name and to see if anybody's saying it's a registered trademark will be the first port of call. The second port of call might be to have a look at the trademark registry itself and to do a search on there. You may find things that come up that are identical, you may find things that feel similar. Again, we would advise furthermore to get a proper clearance search done by professionals. A lot of problems that do come up when people kind of register their name, they've registered it via company's house, and they think, well, we own this name because it's on company's house, but a trading name is different from a registered company name. And then of course, once they get to the point where they want to trademark it, they look out there and they start to see other people in and around that name, and they think, well, we'll just kind of power through with the registration, and then they can kind of have some difficulty. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at the actual process of trademarking the name of a business. So again, number one is that clearance search. So it's all about making sure that the road has been cleared for you to kind of seek this trademark registration. Again, there tends to be the case that most businesses have an idea of what they want to register, and sometimes when it comes to the clearance search and the kind of analysis, there might be some adjustments that need to be made to make sure that a business name can still be registered, whether this is to do with its ability to function as a trademark. Again, some things can't necessarily be registered, like descriptive terms and things of that nature. And indeed, the main issue being anybody else on the register that might cause a problem, whether they're similar or identical. But again, there are ways to kind of address that on a kind of case-by-case basis. So speak to your kind of trademark professional about that. So once the road has been cleared, the next step is to complete a trademark registration kind of application. Again, advise that you get professional help here. This involves kind of like creating a specification of how it's going to be used, which can again be tailored to avoid kind of issues with oppositions and kind of other people on the registry, but also you're going to want to make sure that you get the kind of broader scope of protection for how you're actually going to be using the brand. So again, it's that balancing act to make sure that you can kind of get the trademark registered, but also avoid any issues that might arise. The next step after that is to submit the trademark application to the IPO, at which point it's kind of examined by the trademark examiner, and then shortly after that, if it's passed the exam to see whether it can function as a trademark, then it becomes published and other people get to see it and potentially oppose it if they think it's too close to theirs, and so on and so forth. But of course, with the clearance search and with the analysis that you've kind of completed before, you should be kind of being able to go through that process quite quickly. And then step number 4, after some time you will then receive your trademark certificate to say that you have essentially have this trademark registered, which is fantastic. So, should you get professional help whilst registering your business name? It's a bit of a loaded question. We strongly recommend that any trademark registration is kind of looked at professionally. And again, you don't have to come to us, although we are very well placed to do so. I think the reason why we do recommend this is because as it's the first brand that businesses try to register, for the most part, it's the one that they typically do first and they get wrong first. You can limit the scope of your protection. You can not build an asset that's really, really kind of foundational for your business by not necessarily getting the detail right. And you can also run into some pretty sticky situations as it relates to oppositions and, even potentially having to rebrand as you kind of get a big, opposition or a dispute that emerges from a kind of an oversight within the application process. So ultimately, again, highly, highly recommended that you get professional help. And indeed, if you have had any issues with your own trademark applications that you have done yourself, again, we're more than capable and happy to help you.